Hello and welcome back to day 2 of our First Corinthians study, or if you want to call it a study. My name is Lewis, and if you missed our first video, basically what I'm doing is over the next 10 days, taking some time to discuss First Corinthians 13 and trying to relate it to Christmas. The premise I used in our last video was discussing the idea that we've lost sight of the importance of love when it comes to Christmas. We've made things a duty or a responsibility, a chore, and we've lost love in it all. And so what I want to do is take a very familiar passage in 1 Corinthians and try to relate it to the importance of Christmas as we get ready to celebrate this year. And although this is on YouTube and I've shared it on my various feeds, I'm not looking to make this this isn't a goal of trying to make this a new way of doing things. I'm hoping to be an encouragement, and if it's something that helps you out, great, terrific, wonderful. That's my overall goal. In the last video, we discussed the first part of 1 Corinthians 13. We discussed the first 3 verses, and we talked about the importance of love. Before we described what it is, we discussed why it's important. And we said if we want people to hear us and listen to us, but we don't have love, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I've become a sounding brass, tinkling cymbal, just basically noise. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. Again, the importance of charity takes something as powerful as faith that has the ability to move mountains and makes it null and void because it doesn't have charity. And it says, though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. So even if I have all these actions that show just what a good person I am, but I don't do it out of charity, it does not have charity as its basis, as its guideline, it doesn't profit me anything. See, I know personally, and I know it's easy to say this, if people don't know me, they may not believe this, but I know personally my goal, my ambition, my hope is that people that interact with me leave the interaction better than they were when they walked into it. And so the first thing I have to do is I have to hold forth charity. You know, when I look at friendships, the Bible says, greater love hath no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. Well, if you're giving of your life, if you're taking and making that sacrifice, you're hopefully doing it out of charity. If you're sitting there, and what is your life? Your life is time. Your life is it's a collection of moments. If you're donating and giving of that time, if you don't do it out of charity, it's no profit to you whatsoever. And honestly, it could minimize the importance you have on somebody else because you don't have charity. So anyway, I said that last video was 20 minutes, and my goal is not to be another 20 minutes, but to keep these short, because they're short ideas as we get closer and closer to Christmas. So we're going to talk about verse 4. And, you know, verse 4's got a couple ideas about defining charity. The verse itself says, charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. And I'm not going to use all 4 of those pieces right now. I want to stick with one. Like I said, I want to keep these short, simple, and sweet. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Now, one of the things in school that I learned going to a Christian college was that if you want to define the Bible or describe the Bible, use the Bible to do that. So what's an example of charity suffering long and being kind? excuse me, if you know the passage in the Bible where it talks about Jesus being crucified, it said that there was a thief on the cross next to him. And so, if you envision the crucifixion and you envision what it's like for someone to give their life, and they're going through such a painful and agonizing way of dying, and they're dying not because they're guilty, they're dying because they're sacrificing for somebody else. And in that moment, while they're dealing with such pain, such agony, such stress, and in that moment, when they're going through that, there's someone next to them that was just mocking him, just making fun of him. And the whole reason Jesus was there was to die for the person that's mocking him. That's suffering long. And the kindness, if you go a verse or two later, when the thief realizes who this is, and the thief gets told by Jesus, "Today thou shalt be with me in paradise." His faith had saved him. His faith had made him whole. That's being kind. Charity suffereth long and is kind. You know, as a person who's had people offend him and he's offended people, I can't sit there and say that there's a limit. I can't tell you what that is. I can't say, well, when you suffer long, there's a point at which you don't have to suffer anymore. There's a point that you can cut it off and say, that's it. You've used up all of your charitable suffering. There's not a limit to it when you remember that Jesus gave his life. One of the messages I remember hearing talking about forgiveness and what forgiveness is was the idea of not letting past events affect present relationships. When you envision someone doing something to offend you, to violate you, causing you to, if you really truly love, to suffer long, what point do you stop? I challenge you to say that the Bible doesn't tell you there's a point where you stop suffering. It says it suffereth long. What's the end goal? What's the end result? Why are you going through it? If you truly love, at what point does it stop? Now, it's easy to say that because I don't know everybody's circumstance. I don't know what everyone's gone through and what they're dealing with. And there may be a point where you say enough is enough. That's between you and God. What I'm telling you is what the passage says and the example that is set. Charity suffereth long and is kind. What about you today? When you think about Christmas coming just a few days away, Jesus went through the ultimate suffering and was still kind. How does that challenge you today? What do you have planned? Are there relationships that you've given up on? I'm not saying you have to go back and have the same relationship. I'm not saying you have to go back and be in the same position, because there are still consequences to the actions of a relationship, to whatever it is that causes the offense. There's still a consequence. But if we want to be Christ-like, especially going around Christmas and claiming the name of Christ. In the first video, you remember I said there's an expectation. If I'm going to say I'm a Christian, there's an expectation that God gives to us and how we're supposed to live. If I'm going to live up to that, I need to understand. I need to show charity. I need to show love. That's why he has this passage here. That's why this is written to a church of believers. Hey, you need to show charity. And one of the things you need to remember is charity suffereth long and is kind. Are you long suffering today? And are you showing that kindness? Is there someone in your life that deserves that. Next time, we'll talk about envying not, vaunting not itself, and not puffed up. Those are the next three. We may combine two of them just for sake of time because I want to cover all these things before we get to Christmas. But just remember, I'm not telling you to do this. I'm telling you what the Bible says true charity is supposed to be. May God bless you as you seek Him.